this is blood glucose. The lower the blood glucose, the higher the plasma concentration of glucagon. And so when also you will have a lot of glucagon too when you're in exercise, right? And you want to provide amino acids. Also, other than the low glucose level, amino acids can have an effect on glucose secretion. If you have blood amino acid, that can stimulate glucagon secretion too. And exercise also can stimulate secretion of glucagon, and probably that's an anticipation of the necessity for more glucose. Okay, well, summary of blood glucose regulation. يعني خلص لسه بنعرف احنا what happens with insulin, right? With glucagon, قلنا اثنين they have something to do with blood glucose or fat metabolism or alcohol. Let's just go over the summary of what we have been talking about all this week. Liver functions as a buffer system, right? And if I have more glucose, I take it in, I make it into glycogen, and then when I make it into more glucose and release it, both insulin and glucagon function as important feedbacks in order to maintain this concentration of glucose within a certain range. In severe hypoglycemia, of course, that is a stress by itself, and it will stimulate the sympathetic nervous system as well as the hypothalamus, and that will increase the release of epinephrine, which increases the release of glucose from the liver, and norepinephrine it causes glycogenolysis, okay? And it stimulates gluconeogenesis too. And then over a period of days and maybe months, growth hormone and cortisol will also have an effect, and they both respond to hypoglycemia. So we have a number of hormones that regulate the blood sugar. Well, now, why do you, sometimes people ask the question, we know, a lot of people with diabetes, if they have uncontrolled plasma glucose concentration, they're not fantastically in a good shape. They can have all kinds of difficulties. We know that, but let's see what, now the normal glucose and the fasting level, it should be about 100 milligram per 100 milliliter, or 1 milligram per milliliter if you like to do that. But let's say we have a person with uncontrolled glucose concentration. It's not 100, it's a lot more, 200 or 300. What is going to happen to the osmolality of the extracellular fluid if we have a very high increase? Now, you remember when we talked about osmolality, we said more than 90% of osmolality in the extracellular fluid is determined by what? Sodium or glucose.
So somehow glucose and
it's caused by sodium bicarbonate or sodium chloride, more than 90%. That's when you're talking about the normal concentration of plasma glucose. But if you're talking about increased concentration, well, the rest of the 10%, whatever, is determined usually by creatinine and glucose. So if you have a lot higher levels of glucose in the blood, that becomes an osmotic force that increases the osmosis. So what's going to happen to water inside the cell? Yes, it will leave. Osmotic pressure is higher. That's right. A lot of water will leave the cells, and you will have cellular dehydration. Okay, so that's not good. People, and when you have cellular dehydration, you will have water is leaving the intercellular fluid compartment. You will have an increase in extracellular fluid volume that will increase your excretion of water and sodium, so you will be dehydrated very soon. It starts as intracellular dehydration, but it will end up as dehydration.
Will it cause edema?
Edema?
Can it cause
If your kidneys are fine, you will be excreting the extra fluid. And see it. Okay, I had a question, but we forgot. Okay. The other thing is, if you have a higher concentration of glucose in the plasma, the filtered load of glucose will increase, and therefore you will exceed the Tmax. You remember the transport maximum? So therefore, under normal circumstances, we reabsorb all our glucose that is filtered in the proximal tubule. But when you increase the transport maximum, a lot of glucose will be lost in the urine. Not only that, but the glucose that remains in the tubule will also attract water to it, and it has an osmotic force. You will end up also losing a lot of water. And if you know anybody who is diabetic, they urinate a lot, and that's the reason why they urinate a lot, they become quite dehydrated.
How about healing? It decreases in people with diabetes.
Yes.
Why?
Because it reduces the healing process. That's right. Okay. We also find out that people with high level of glucose very often for a very long period of time that can lead to vascular damage. And that's a process, they can have all kinds of difficulty. It probably has something to do with things that we don't even understand, but it causes, we know, for example, in the kidney, it causes hyperfiltration. And even though we remember when we talked about the kidney, we said that glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure is 60 millimeters of mercury. In people with diabetes that is uncontrolled, renal blood flow and GFR increase, the glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure increase, and over a period of time they will have renal failure. It seems that the capillaries and the glomeruli simply do not like any pressure above 60. Ultimately, they will lead to renal failure, and a lot of, unfortunately, patients with diabetes, they end up having renal failure or transplant or something which doesn't help them even in the long run. So they end up having very serious cardiovascular and renal problems. Yes, Karim, you had a question?
Yes, I had a question concerning the reason why people urinate a lot in diabetes. Isn't the main reason because of protein catabolism?
Yeah, the main reason is they're filtering a lot of glucose. The glucose is filtered freely across the capillary, glomerular capillary. Because the concentration of glucose in the plasma is high, a lot of glucose will be filtered, it will exceed the transport maximum of glucose. When you do that, you will only absorb the transport maximum amount and everything else will remain in the urine. So glucose in the tubular fluid attracts water to it. Like it has diuretic, glucose is called osmotic. You can cause osmotic diuresis with glucose. So it attracts a lot of water to the tubule, so these people use a lot of glucose with a lot of urine, a lot of water. So they drink a lot and they urinate a lot. And if you have when we have, sometimes we do experiments with rats where we induce diabetes, we treat them with insulin just enough to stay alive. We have to change their cages every day because they practically urinate in the cage. We usually change it. If you have one rat in a cage, you change it once every 4 days. But with diabetic rats, you have to change it every day. Like, otherwise,
Change what?
the cage, because they urinate a lot. Yes, yes. Is there what? No, we're talking about diabetes mellitus. Diabetes insipidus also result in a lot of urination, and you don't have ADH, but for a totally different reason. Yes.
So, as you mentioned, glucose once it's in the
Tubular fluid.
it will attract water.
Yes, and it has an osmotic force. إذا عندك solution of glucose on one side and pure water on one side, the water will go to the... Okay. Inshallah, tomorrow we will talk about diabetes mellitus.